Greetings all, Ferrari 601 here. Now, before you click away from this video because you're asking yourself, why the hell do I care about a Formula 2000 car and why do I give half a damn about Pocono Raceway? Well, bear with me for a couple of minutes here. Next Sunday, so 1 week from the day this video has gone up, I have the very cool opportunity to test a Formula 2000 car over at Pocono Raceway. Those of you who have been able to divine a little bit about me here over the years on YouTube, you might know that I live in New Jersey, so Pennsylvania is the next state over for me. That means Pocono Raceway is only about an hour and a half or a 2-hour drive from where I live. So it makes for the perfect destination for a day trip of sorts. Now, I've been quiet for the most part about this arrangement on YouTube, mostly because there's a question of content, and I do want to show you guys as much of this experience as I possibly can. So in terms of going to and from the track, I will probably be able to put together very short live streams from my phone, that sort of thing. That shouldn't be too much of a problem. However, in terms of actual on-track footage of me driving the car, there will be a camera on the car, and it will be running. However, I do not own that camera that is on the car, which means that I don't own the footage that that camera will produce. Now, I will be, at the end of all of this, in possession of said footage. However, I don't know if it will be possible for me to put it up on YouTube unedited and brand it as my own, because it's not my own. So I'm going to ask permission from the racing school, the racetrack, the photographer, whoever ultimately owns that footage. I will ask them permission. I will say, look, I run this YouTube channel. I do have a fair number of subscribers, and they would be very interested to see this. If I have to make some sort of deal with them where I put their logo up, or I plug them verbally, or put a link in the description, I'd very gladly do that, but I cannot promise you at this point whether or not you'll be able to actually see footage of me driving this car. With that said, though, I do plan on putting together quite a few little short videos here just documenting this experience as much as I can. I will be taking a lot of pictures, that's for sure, and those of you who follow me on social media, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, you can be sure that you're going to see a lot of this stuff up there. So do keep an eye out for that. However, let's get down to business. The car that I will be driving is a Formula 2000 car. For those of you who don't know, it is an open-wheeled, open-cockpit wing car powered by a 2000cc 2-liter engine, hence the name Formula 2000. Confession time for me, though. I know that over the years on YouTube I have put together quite a few videos, over 1,000 now, of me in various racing sims driving a whole bunch of different cars, a lot of open-wheel Formula type cars, and a lot of you have been very complimentary in terms of either my driving ability or the videos themselves with the production quality, and I do very much appreciate all of that. However, me coming clean in all of this means the following. My actual real-world racing experience is effectively zero. The most I have ever done is drive a racing kart. So yeah, put that into perspective. I've never raced karts competitively. I have only done track days in karts, and at that it's even somewhat limited. I do have a reasonable amount of experience in karts, but nothing truly substantial. I understand what they can do, I understand how to drive them, and I understand, if given more time and given more resources, I understand how I could be on the pace in something like a kart. So I have my head wrapped around that. But that's as far as my experience goes in terms of an actual racing vehicle that I've ever driven or have appreciable seat time in. On the road car side of the world, the most powerful thing that I have ever driven is a BMW 3 Series. So just let that sink in for a moment. Those of you who know your cars, and I assume that's essentially all of you here watching this, BMW 3 Series, the most power that you could ever expect to squeeze out of that thing is about 300 horsepower, and that's being a little bit liberal with the numbers. It's more so around 250. So BMW 3 Series is the fastest thing I have ever driven. I have been a passenger in faster cars, but as a passenger, you can't really get all that much information about how the car actually handles and whatnot, and plus, when you're on the road, you can't really have fun anyway. So, yeah, that's where my experience ends in terms of either driving a racing vehicle or just driving a really fast car. That said, though, my daily driver, yes, it's that 2013 Toyota Tacoma that I dressed up as a mod in an April Fool's video, making it a parody of myself and my Assetto Corsa reviews. Believe it or not, there is actually quite a bit more in common with my lowly little truck and this Formula 2000 car than you might realize. First of all, the specs on the Formula 2000 car. It is, of course, a 2-liter 4-cylinder car. It's a wing car. It's got front and rear wings, which means that it's going to be generating a little bit of downforce at speed. The engine is a 4-cylinder Ford. It produces about 125 horsepower. It's single overhead cam. I believe it has 4 valves per cylinder. I'm not quite sure on that, but it's a high performance road engine, basically. 2-liter 4-cylinder. It's a very common engine that you see in a lot of road cars nowadays. They weren't quite as common in the past, but now pretty much every small road car is offered at least in some trim level with that 4-cylinder engine at 1.5 or 2 liters displacement. That engine is mated to a 4-speed Hewland manual gearbox. So it's a proper racing car. The engine is mid-mounted behind the cockpit. It's got wings. It's got push rod, wishbone suspension, double wishbone push rod suspension, and it's open-wheeled, open cockpit. So it's a proper Formula car. It's a baby Formula car, but it is a Formula car nonetheless. The tires that it's going to run on are effectively road tires. I think they are probably comparable to a high-performance summer tire, but they are road tires. So that means that they don't really get up to high temperatures. They have a very forgiving slip angle, and the performance envelope in them is very wide. So you don't have to worry about tire temperature so much. You don't have to worry about making sure that when you do approach the limit, you don't overstep it, because you have a lot of grace in these tires to be able to get the car back if you do overstep it a bit. So you don't have to be quite as precise, which is good, because an utter novice like myself, I'm definitely thankful for that. However, the commonalities between this car and what I do every day in my truck. This car, the Formula 2000 car, has 125 horsepower. My truck, it's got another 4-cylinder engine, but it is a bit higher in its displacement. It is 2.7 liters, and this Formula car only has 2 liters displacement. So my truck is slightly bigger in its engine size, and it produces somewhat more power. My truck has about 160, 165 horsepower. This Formula car has got 125. So what I drive every day is more powerful than this race car. However, my truck weighs about 4,600 pounds, and this Formula 2000 car weighs about 1,400 pounds. So that's the difference. There's the intelligent question of power to weight ratio rearing its ugly head. And yeah, you can definitely see the power to weight ratio is a lot higher in the Formula 2000 car than it would be in my truck. However, another saving grace that might help me on the day is the following. This Formula car has an unsynchronized 4-speed manual gearbox. My truck has a 5-speed manual gearbox, which is synchronized because it's a road gearbox and it's just more convenient. However, the synchros in my particular truck are particularly bad. So, in terms of being able to come out of gear without using the clutch, or having to rev match or heel toe, double clutch, things like that. That's stuff that I do every day, all day long. So that is very familiar to me. So at least on the face of it, I am not particularly worried about two things. The overall power, because I think the acceleration and things like that is going to be something that I can cope with. And I'm not worried about the gearbox, because effectively, even though this one is properly unsynchronized and mine is just a little bit faulty, the operation is going to be essentially the same. So I'm not worried about those two things. What I am worried about, though, is the fact that I've been a racing fan for a very long time. And more specifically, I've been a fan of the elite open wheel classes of racing. So GP2, now Formula 2, Formula 1, and IndyCar. Because of that, I have a lot of knowledge, and I know the physics that are at work with something like this. A Formula 1 car, for example, because of those wings and because of that underbody and all of those turning vanes and winglets and whatever, that thing generates 2.5 times its own weight, if not a bit more than that, in downforce at high speed. Now, the amount of downforce that this Formula 2000 car is going to produce is going to be nowhere near that. It's going to be nowhere near 2.5 times the car's own weight. But it will be enough to generate 2.5 G in high-speed corners. And there are 2 high-speed corners at this North Circuit at Pocono Raceway, at which I'll be driving. So I'm aware of what G-force is. I know that it's a very powerful thing, and it's something that you're going to have to respect, and something that you're going to have to deal with here. So, although I don't have a whole lot of experience actually behind the wheel, I have an understanding at very least of what that is and what it does not only to the driver, but what it does to the car. So, there is where I think I have to rely on just some book knowledge or some maybe sim racing knowledge, and that's something that we're going to be talking about a little bit in this video here, where we do a little bit of a shakedown in a Formula 2000 car at the track that I'll be driving. However, some differences that we're already having to deal with between sim and the real world. The car that we have here in iRacing is the Skip Barber Formula 2000 car. Now, we all know what just happened to Skip Barber. They have unfortunately departed this earth, and it wasn't particularly nice, the manner in which that happened. I saw a picture online a couple of days ago, all of their Mazda MX-5s crushed in a junkyard. So it's been a very bad day for Skip Barber Racing. However, couple differences between this car, the Barber car, and the one that I'll be driving, the Scandia F2000 that I'll be driving in the real world. The Barber car has a 5-speed gearbox, and it's a sequential gearbox, so its operation is somewhat similar to what you get on a motorcycle, rather than what you get from a manual gearbox that you'd find in a car. For example, I don't have to use the clutch on the upshifts, I just have to lift the throttle. However, I do have to heel toe, dip the clutch, and all that stuff on the downshift, so that is close enough. The engine is very similar. It's a 2-liter 4-cylinder, about 130 horsepower, and we're running pretty much road tires on this Barber car as well, and it's got wings. So perhaps we'll be able to divine some of what I'm going to have to deal with in the real world here. So in the cockpit of the Barber car here at Pocono, we're in the pit exit here. Couple things for those of you who are familiar with this track. IndyCar goes here, NASCAR goes here, and this is a 2.5-mile triangle out in the middle of Long Pond, Pennsylvania, which is precisely between no place and nowhere in particular if you're looking at a map of the state of Pennsylvania. So the track that I'll be running on, yes, it's Pocono Raceway. However, we use turn 3 of the NASCAR/IndyCar track, and then we turn into the infield. So I don't actually run the entirety of the tricky triangle as it is. We run a lot of the back straight, I suppose if you want to call it the back straight. It's between turns 2 and 3. And we run turn 3 proper. And that's it. The rest is infield, which I believe is used as access roads, and probably some parking too for when IndyCar and NASCAR come here. But that's the track. We run in the opposite direction as NASCAR and IndyCar. Obviously, they turn left. We turn right around turn 3. But we still get the banking, which will probably be an interesting experience. I've never driven on banking ever, whether in a road car or in a kart or anything. So I'm actually quite interested to feel what banking is going to be like. But that's the track. So now, let's get in the car, start it up, and have a look at what this track is. Of course, on the day, I don't have any ability of predicting what the track conditions are going to be. I don't know if it will have been raining the night before. I don't know how much running will have been taking place on the infield course. I know that effectively no running at all will happen on the oval, because IndyCar goes there in August, and I'm not entirely sure where NASCAR goes there. I'm going to the IndyCar race here, so I know IndyCar will be there in August, but aside from that, I don't know what other activities happen on the oval here at Pocono. But the infield course, probably going to be dirty, I know that they do track day events quite often here, but I don't know what kinds of cars it is. I don't know what sort of rubber will be down, if any rubber will be down at all. Right now, they are forecasting rain next weekend to the tune of 50% for Long Pond, Pennsylvania. And we will run in the rain to a point, but again, it all comes down to how much does it actually rain and what are the conditions really like. If there's lightning in the area, then we won't run, obviously, because a racetrack, just a big open space. It's essentially the worst place you could be in a thunderstorm. So that's the only thing that's really going to stop this, if we get lightning. However, for the purposes of trying to figure this out in iRacing, I have dialed the track conditions out to being as dirty and dusty and unused as it can possibly be. There's debris on the sides of the track, there's really no rubber down, and there's dirt offline. So that's what we're going to be dealing with here, and maybe, just maybe, that's what I'll be dealing with in the real world. So we've done our first lap, and you can just get a sense of the course layout. It's 1.3 miles, so it's not particularly long, but in a car like this, which doesn't have a lot of straight line speed, it's long enough to get a couple of decent corners in here and really start to get a sense of what the car does. So I'm just being very, very cautious here. Not really concerned about building temperature in the tires because these are road tires, remember, and if anything, you want to keep them cooler. But we will start to come up to speed here. I have very quietly, and I haven't posted anything about this yet, I've very quietly been doing some practice runs here in iRacing, so I'm not a novice, at very least in iRacing to this circuit, so I do know which way everything goes, and generally I know what the best lines are. So coming down what is for us start-finish, this is where we hit our highest speed, about 108 miles an hour, and then we come into turn 1, which is very, very fast, I must say. Through turn 2, which is effectively a double apex right-hander, we can go wide on the exit here because we've got exit curbs, and we come into this short infield straight, coming into turn 3. Downshift into second gear, and then we throw it in, hit the apex a little bit late. Road goes off camber here at the top of the hill, and then turn 4 is a double apex right-hander. Two elements to it. You make a very late apex, and then you can get out to track left for the exit. Fastest corner aside from turn 1, this infield short chute coming back now onto the main circuit here at Pocono. And then this is turn 3 of the NASCAR track. And that completes a lap around this place. So that's what I'm going to be doing. In the interest of realism here, I am not doing any left foot braking. My right foot is doing the gas and the brake. My left foot is only using the clutch. And at that, I'm only using the clutch, for the most part, only on the downshift. Sometimes on the upshifts, I will dip the clutch in there a little bit if I'm traveling at somewhat lower speeds, but if you're on a fast lap here, you don't have to use the clutch at all on the upshifts. At least in this Barber car with the sequential box. In the car that I drive, I will be using the clutch on the upshifts. This corner here is quite challenging. I'd say it's probably the most difficult on the circuit because it is off camber and double apexed. Then through here, understeer if you stay on the throttle, but if you come off the throttle, there's a bit of oversteer, which is quite welcome. And then of course, turn 3 of the NASCAR/IndyCar track, flat out. You get right down here toward the curbing, no problem. And then you do hit your max speed here, about 110 or so miles an hour in this car. And this corner. This is a really fast corner. Easily taken at over 100 miles an hour, at least in this particular iRacing configuration of this North Circuit. I don't know if that corner is going to be profiled in quite that way on the day. They may well put cones out in the middle of the circuit to sort of square off that corner, because I find it hard to believe that they would let a bunch of novices go into a corner like that at full throttle at triple-digit speeds, but we'll see. I can do it here on iRacing, and of course that's not to say anything about the G-force that this car be generating. Like I said, because you've got wings, there is a potential that this thing could generate as much as 2.5 G in a high-speed corner, so we'll see. However, my sensibilities tell me they're probably going to be squaring that off with some cones, if not some tire barriers. So the line that I think we're going to be taking is probably brake here to about 3rd gear, and then they square it off, and then we hit the apex here on those curbs, and then we jink over for the turn in there on those curbs. However, the rest of the track, there shouldn't be any need to modify anything, because the corners are not particularly fast anywhere else. Relatively speaking, of course, I have not dropped below 50 miles an hour at any point on this lap. Rejoining the oval. Again, there may be cones there to keep us away from the edge of the track to dip some wheels over the side there, which would unsettle the car tremendously. But generally, this is what it's going to be for me. And I'm just trying to get myself as intimate as possible with the way that this track is set up. Just using my mind's eye here to try and predict how they might route us through that first corner, because I can't believe they would let us go that fast through there. Fastest part of the infield here, you can see when you come off the throttle you get a little bit of oversteer. That's going to help you turn the car in. That's very welcome indeed. And then just full throttle around the banking. Go up through the box. Remember, the car that I'm driving is going to be a 4-speed. However, we have 5 gears here in the Barber car. And we're going to take this corner as fast as we can, just to show you really what the potential is. And I completely missed the turn in there, which again is probably another reason why they're not going to let us go at full speed on the day, because it's very difficult to see the apex when you're that far away from it, still on the NASCAR track. We'll come around again and take that better, hopefully. And I got the wheels off the track there. Rear end didn't quite have the grip. That's what happens when you dip a wheel onto grass. Again, these are all things to wonder about on the day. How precise do you have to be? Where are all 4 corners of the car at all times? You'd better know where they are. Otherwise, you could make a fool of yourself pretty easily. It sounds a little silly to say things like that about a car that has 120 horsepower, but it's true. You can see there, 110 miles an hour into the corner there. There's no way they're going to let us take it that quickly. No way. Lift, get the nose tucked in, back on the power, brakes, downshift. try to keep the car from going too high up the banking here. There's no reason to use the rest of the banking in terms of going up the racetrack. You're just not going fast enough. Yeah, you can see what's possible there with the high speed going into that corner. Again, I do not think they're going to let us go that fast through there. But you can readily see a lap around this place doing turn 1 like this takes about 59 seconds. So that's what you're up against. At this point, the tires feel fine. Maybe a little bit of wear visible there on the fronts and from what I can see of the rears, but they're road tires, so they have a very wide performance envelope. You don't have to think too much about temperatures. If anything, you might get them a little too hot if you push it too much. In fact, I think the tires may be a little bit too hot now because they're starting to slide a little bit more than they were. I think on the day, this corner here is going to be the most challenging because it's off camber on the entrance and then it's double apex all the way through. If you can get the back end to work with you, you could carry a lot of momentum through there and sort of do a half drift through the corner. But I don't know how my car is actually going to be set up. I don't know what the wear of the tires is going to be. I assume they're going to bias these things as much as possible toward understeer. So I may have that to contend with, but I could be completely wrong. They could be in race trim, and they say, you know what, go out and do what you can. But we'll see. We'll see, all in the unknown. See, running the line that I think we're going to be running through that corner. I am learning, though, even just here in iRacing, that these Formula 2000 cars, they're about momentum management. Because they don't have a lot of power, when you do build up speed, you have to maintain it as much as possible. You want to stay on the throttle as much as you possibly can. You want to get back on the power, full power, as quickly as you possibly can when you go through a corner. So there's a lot to be said for being smooth in a car like this. Now go into my best guess as to what we'll be doing through this corner. Yeah, the apex speed goes down from 110 miles an hour to 69. That's more reasonable. Again, I think they're probably going to be putting some cones, if not tire barriers, down on that straight. But you can see there, it is possible to get some nice little slides going in this car, and you can then use them to turn the nose. tires definitely have picked up some wear now, and I like it. I definitely like it. They're warmed up, the news knocked out of them, and the car is a bit freer than it was. I like that, definitely. If the car's like this on the day, I'm going to have a lot of fun. Again, I don't really know what that line actually is going into turn 1. It does take about 2 seconds off of the ultimate lap time, though. And through here, a little dab of brakes and then squeeze the throttle, a little bit of opposite lock. That's nice. And again, if I can get some oversteer like that on the day, I will be a very happy camper. And again, that comes down to the road tires again. As they wear, obviously the limit of grip that they can generate is going to be lower, but because they are road tires, that slip angle and the ultimate limit of adhesion, the envelope is much, much wider. Hit the grass there on the rear, held it, lost a whole bunch of momentum, but I held it. Even in a car like this, I think precision is your friend. And of course, that's not to say how is it going to be running in traffic. There will be other cars on the track with me. Starting to lose the ultimate limit on the brakes there, I think, because of the tires, but still plenty of grip. Not wanting for more grip. Understeer city through there under power. But all in all, it's something that I think is doable. Like I said, though, this is a sim. It's not to say that it's a good analog for reality, so I'm not basing my entire judgment of everything I do on the day on a sim, because I think that would be silly. But that's also not to say that it's impossible to learn something from a sim and then apply it to the real world. I guess I'll find out. I do know that some techniques that I have developed on sims, particularly my throttle blipping, in situations on the road, either in the rain or whatever, where I've had sudden snap oversteer and I've needed to correct it over a distance, I've been stuck in a slide, that throttle blipping has helped. It has kept me out of barriers, it has kept me from spinning, so maybe there is some crossover yet between sim and reality that is to be uncovered here in an actual race situation, but we'll see. I will report back. However, on the day, in terms of how much time that I have in the car at any one time, I have about 20 or 25 minutes each session. I have 2 sessions, so I have about 50 minutes in the car in total, so that comes out to 60, 70 miles. So that would be the end right here of the first session time-wise. So let's come back into the pits. We'll take a look at the tires. We'll see what the wear is on them, at least visually speaking. So if anything else, I've proven that I have the concentration, and then some, to keep the car in a straight line on the track and not hit anything for at least the duration in time that I will be driving the car in a single session. So that's encouraging for me. That's something that I wanted to hear. And if anything, maybe it allays some of my trepidation, but that's not to say that iRacing is an analog to reality in any sort. Yes, it is, to a very high standard as well, and that's why we like sim racing, and that's why there are a lot of iRacing fans out there, a lot of Assetto Corsa fans out there, because the sims that we have today really are good. But it's not a substitute for the real thing by any means, at least not in my estimation. So I will get some insights on that. But this is what I'm going to be doing a week from the day of this upload. So you will hear more. I'm very interested to hear what you think about this. If any of you have ever driven a Formula 2000, Formula 3, Formula 4, Formula Ford, if you've ever driven a car like that, please tell me how you did it. What was it like? What did you learn? What did you have to do? What did you have to not do? And I'm sure that a lot of that will help me out tremendously here as I embark on this little adventure. Like I said, it's going to be the first time that I've ever driven a race car, and I'm really excited about it, but at the same time, because I would like to consider myself educated on racing, just from a fan and enthusiast standpoint, I do understand that I could be up against some pretty interesting barriers here. Hopefully not really, but in a literal sense. But I do know that what is presenting itself to me is perhaps something that shouldn't be trifled with. It's something that needs to be approached in a measured and progressive manner. So if anybody has any experience in an open-wheeled car, particularly, like I said, Formula 2000, Formula 3, Formula 4, do let me know what worked, what didn't, and just generally what to look for, and what to take from this experience too, because I also don't want to be so focused on making sure that I do it well that I don't enjoy it. I want to enjoy it too. So all of that. If you have any experience, any insight, or if you know somebody who did this, talk to them and get back to me, please. I would be very happy to get as much insight as I could before I do this. And of course, as I do this, and after I do this, I will be definitely wanting to share as much of this experience with all of you as I can. I know that many of you are loyal subscribers and you love the content that I bring to you from Assetto Corsa and sometimes iRacing, and I very much appreciate your support. But this is real, and this is something that I know that a lot of you either would love the opportunity to do yourselves, or maybe you have done it yourselves. I've never done it myself, and I love cars, I love motorsport, and I know that all of you do as well, so I want to share this opportunity and this experience with all of you as much as I can, and give you my feedback and just describe to you what it was like. So I will do that to the best of my ability and to the best of my capabilities in terms of video footage and that sort of thing. But until next time, though, I just want to thank you all for sticking with this. It's a very different kind of video. There's no script, no nothing like that. No mission, really. Just trying to get my incoherent blabber out to all of you about what this is and what I'm doing and how exciting it is for me, but at the same time, just some of the concerns that I've got as well. So thank you very much for watching, and of course do share your comments and suggestions and any experiences that you have about doing this, because this is a big shot in the dark for me. So thank you all very, very much for watching. Ferrari Man 601 saying thank you, and we will see you soon.